Ladies and gentlemen, this is the main event of the evening.
Hold one, Andre.
You're not good at this. Get out. Let me tell you a personal story about Vince McMahon.
You just made the list.
Oh my God!
Sorry, no speak English.
Dummy. Goodbye and good night. Hold two, on bar.
It's still real to me, damn it!
Dummy.
This is the worst town I've ever been in.
Hold three, Lamas covered. Three-handle family Gradunzel.
Mamma mia!
And now,
Unchained.Media presents the B+ Podcast with your host, GregUnchained.
It's me, Austin! It was me all along, Austin!
number four, armbar.
I will never retire!
I still got 200 more. I got 200 more holes to list.
All right, fellow B+ players, welcome to the B+ Podcast. I'm your host, GregUnchained. Today is, I don't know, and you don't know what that means, but basically this is a bonus episode because all episodes are bonus episodes right now because we're in the holiday period, but Aqeel, the heel, just couldn't wait. He wanted to talk this period in BritWres, the State of the Union, I guess, as it were, because we're probably not going to talk too much about shows. Aqeel, how are you?
I'm very depressed, actually.
You're very depressed. Right, so the run sheet, I'm going in blind to this episode. The run sheet you sent me just said everything is on fire. So I assume we're talking about the NXT UK situation.
Yeah, so this is probably going to be the last episode of BritWres whatever, because the scene is dead. There's no reason to follow it anymore. We might as well be a WWE podcast now.
All right, you're being a bit dramatic there.
A tad.
I've seen all the stuff, though. I've obviously been keeping abreast of it. But look, before we get into it, can I just say that you have failed miserably at your job?
Ooh. Go on, why?
Because...
Hey, Greg.
Because we're doing a BritWres podcast, and I'm pretty sure we've been doing this since, August or September? September? I don't know. We've done a couple of these now. And I've only just gotten around to watching Riptide Wrestling, and you've never made any recommendations of Riptide Wrestling, and it is amazing.
I think I enjoy most of Riptide. I think it's a very cool... so one of the things about Riptide is they're very cinematographic. Is that the word?
Cinematography. They're very they're cinematic.
It's very interestingly shot.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, I think the only reason I haven't talked much about Riptide is, again, a lot happens in BritWres.
Yes.
So some things fall to the wayside. Riptide, while they produce a lot of good shows, it's rarely very newsworthy.
Right. Well, I got hooked in by I saw an ad on Facebook, Riptide Cinematic Wrestling, and I was like, Cinematic Wrestling, hey, that sounds up my alley, right? Like, because I'm thinking I love Lucha Underground, and I'm one of those crazy people that thinks Ali going into the underworld on Impact is amazing, right? So I'm thinking cinematic, crazy, over the top, but they're just talking about the way they shoot it, and it's an interesting choice for them to not have any commentary as well.
Yeah, you find that a lot with sort of lower level British indie companies, that they just don't bother with commentary. Fight Club Pro rarely has commentary. Attack rarely has commentary. I think they added commentary relatively recently. That's just an aesthetic choice that a lot of companies around that sort of level tend to take.
Right. Right. But I found that interesting. But I was watching a Riptide show. I think it was from September. It was, I can't remember what it was, some tournament, night 2.
It will have been, so they had a 3-night tournament over Pride weekend. to crown their first ever champion.
Yes, well, the ropes were rainbow, so that makes perfect sense, yeah.
Yeah, Riptide got a lot of hype when they first started because of how everything is shot and whatever. They've lost some interest in the last couple of months, partly because they haven't been running shows as regularly, partly just because the level of wrestlers they're using is relatively low level. You'll have a Volta or a Timothy Thatcher or an Aussie Open show up, but you'll also have people like Chuck Mambo or Spike Trevay who are sort of still just bubbling under.
Yeah, well, this show I watched had Ringkampf versus Aussie Open, and it also had a match that it just hooked me immediately and became, it skyrocketed up my list of matches for this year with Chris Ridgway versus David Starr.
Yeah. So
it was everything I like in a wrestling match was those two going at it. It was amazing.
Yeah, I haven't seen the match myself yet. I'm a little bit behind on Riptide. But David Starr is always incredible in this country. And Chris Ridgway is a dude that, when he's good, he's really, really good.
Yeah.
He's a guy that a lot of people have been talking about as the next big BritWres star for a couple of years now. And it's looking like we're finally at the point where he's going to fulfill his potential.
Yeah, he's someone that I want to see come over here because there's a couple of names I would love to see him work with, and I've already told a couple of promoters I'm like Chris Ridgway, Chris Ridgway is the guy to bring out because he could have some really good matches over here with guys like AJ Istria or Jack Bonza. There's some guys over here that he could have some ripper matches with. So very high on Chris Ridgway.
Yeah, he just debuted in the US. Yesterday, actually. So he's starting to get out there a bit more.
All right, who was that for?
Defy.
Okay, yeah.
And he worked a bar wrestling show on Thursday or Friday.
Nice. Love me some bar wrestling. But yeah, so that was all. I just wanted to tell you that you're doing a shitty job because you hadn't hyped me up on Riptide, and that's what you're there for. I came across it on the OTT service, which you did hype up OTT to me. So by proxy, you got me there. But Riptide is one that I'm going to be watching from now on. I'm a fan.
Yeah, I don't think they have any shows scheduled for a little while. But I might be wrong.
It's because the scene is dead, right?
Because the scene is dead and there's no point running shows anymore.
Right, so we'll come back to it because that was the only point I had coming into this podcast was I discovered Riptide. So now let's bring it back. They're not running shows. The scene is dead. Tell us why.
Okay, so with these NXT UK contracts, it's seeming like WWE are enforcing them a lot stronger than they have been before.
Right. As of January. It seems like there's two reasons why that's happening. First of all is the fact that the actual tapings aren't getting a lot of people. The attendance isn't very good, just because most people you see on the NXT UK tapings, you can see at other shows for a lot cheaper. So why would you go to this main NXT show? So they're protecting their roster in terms of drawing power for those tapings. That makes perfect sense, yeah.
Makes perfect sense. The other thing seems to be that come January, they are both ramping up NXT UK. We've got the NXT UK Takeover show running end of January, I think.
Right, Takeover Blackpool.
It doesn't have the same ring to it as Takeover New Orleans and New York and all of this.
No, it doesn't.
No,
it doesn't.
People outside of the UK might not know Blackpool is actually a bit of a shithole. So it's really weird that it's being treated.
Well, I only know Blackpool as that's where William Regal's from.
Yeah, no, it's a seaside resort. It's a bit shit. It's weird. It's weird that they're running there and treating it like a big deal. I imagine it is because Regal's from there. He knows the local scene a little bit, or it's just cheap. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think as a wrestling fan, when I hear Blackpool, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, that's where William Regal's from, right? Like, it's one of those things. Like, I learned as a kid, I learned American geography from WCW and WWF. Like, that's how I learned where cities were and stuff. And so hearing Blackpool, I assume it's somewhere cool because that's where William Regal's from.
No, it's not. But anyway, anyway, can you tell I'm upset today? Anyway,
I can.
So the main thing is these contracts seem to be tiered. There seems to be 3 different tiers. A lot of this reporting was done by friend of the show Arnold Furious
Yes.
over on Voices of Wrestling. So you can assume it's likely to be true. So there's 3 tiers. The first tier is for, it seems to be mostly people that are on the NXT TakeOver show, people that are very heavily featured on TV. So your British Strong Styles, your Gallus, I think they're called now, the Coffees and Wolfgang.
Which I love that name, by the way.
Yeah, it's fine. It's a fine
I'm
name.
enjoying. See, this is the thing, right? As a person who is not entrenched in the scene, just watching from the outside, I'm enjoying NXT UK, right? Like I'll be happier when it cuts back to 1 hour once they've caught up on the tapings and all that. I'll be happier when it's only an hour a week, but I'm really enjoying it. And this Gallus versus British Strong Style stuff that's going on, I'm enjoying it all. So I'm coming into this with a very different attitude to you.
Yeah, I can tell. I think it's fine right now. It's not gripping me yet, but I'm willing to give it. Look, NXT, we talked about this last time. NXT proper took like a year or 2 to get really good. So it might take NXT UK around the same amount of time.
Yeah, well, I get Rhea Ripley on my TV once a week, which is nice. And also my new love in wrestling, Isla Dawn. I've discovered Isla Dawn, and I am a fan. So yeah, I don't know. For me, I'm really enjoying this whole NXT UK thing. So I'm going to have a hard time being negative.
We will go into the weeds in a second.
All right. I just want to say as well, initially, when the initial stuff came out about these tiers, right, that Arnold's been talking about and that's been going on Voices of Wrestling, and it sort of made its way through, even Meltzer's talking about them and stuff now, these tiered contracts. Initially, it was thought that it was only sort of the top, like only the British Strong Style guys sort of thing. But it has sort of come out now that it's pretty much anyone who's making it to weekly TVs and the takeover special and stuff.
Anyone who's properly featured is probably under a tier 1 contract.
Yeah. Which is quite a few people.
Yeah, which is a lot more than you'd think. I'm even surprised that some of the names I've heard are under tier 1 contracts.
Yeah, because initially it was thought like, British Strong Style and Tony Storm, that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
But no, there's a lot more than that.
Yeah. So the thing with the tier 1 contracts is that if you're under a tier 1 contract, you can't work VOD for any company, right?
Right.
And the only companies you can work are the WWE affiliated companies, being Progress, ICW, Fight Club Pro, Attack, OTT, and soon WXW, which is a whole other thing we're going to get into. And if you work those companies, you can only appear in dark matches for those companies. So what's actually happening is, even yesterday, Pete Dunne had his last match for Attack Pro Wrestling, which is a company he owns.
Yeah.
So they're just not even bothering showing up on the shows, because if you can't put it on the VOD, what's the point? And I'm sure that's...
Yeah, right. And they did a Loser Leaves Town in Fight Club Pro, which is Trent Seven's promotion, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a little bit crazy when you look at it that way. But you got to think that they're still going to be able to be on Progress and ICW and these sorts of places because, the tiered network is supposedly coming as soon as January. So
that's the
Progress may not miss a beat.
Yeah, that's the other thing about these tiered contracts and why they're probably happening is from a lot of people are now saying that the tiered network is going to start as soon as January, as you said. Progress and ICW are going to show up on the network. And then Evolve and WXW will follow a little while afterwards, depending on the success of Progress and ICW.
Right. You would think you'd start with Progress and Evolve. I think Evolve would be more successful than ICW. I know how you're going to feel about that because you're not an ICW fan at all. But I thought you'd think they'd go with one American and one UK, but it's a little bit strange.
They might decide to do Progress and Evolve. Like, the stories I've heard is that it's all literally on a server. They just need to press a button to make it go live. So they could change at any moment and go, okay, let's do Progress and Evolve instead, because that might make a bit more sense, like he said.
Right. Yeah, just today there's a lot of talk about WWE are going to make big changes in January. So you got to assume this tiered network is part of it, but they're saying really big changes that they think is going to turn the company's ratings around. So I don't know how any of that plays in, but just something I saw right before we went live that I was reading about, and I'm like, I wonder if this is going to play in at all.
It could be. It could be. You never know. So that's the first tier. Second tier is you can show up on VOD for any of those any of the WWE partner companies, but you can't work anywhere else. And most people, so the way I've heard it explained is if you're on TV but maybe not on TakeOver itself, you're probably under a Tier 2 contract. So, I don't know, Flash Morgan Webster, Mark Andrews, guys like that, who have a spot on the show and are featured players, but aren't really doing anything on the big show, they're probably under Tier 2.
Right.
And then you've got Tier 3, which is basically for your jobbers, your Jack Stars, your Joseph Connors, your whoever, where you can work anywhere except a small list of blacklisted companies. Those blacklisted...
Like RevPro.
Like Defiant, like New Japan, like Ring of Honor.
Yes. And you're not even allowed to work people who work for those companies. Is that...
No one is. No one on any tier is allowed to work against someone
who works for Impact or New Japan or
Ring
any
of Honor
those.
or MLW or even Lucha Underground.
Right. Which is, that's the part where I was like, okay, that's a bit annoying because that's, that eliminates some pretty cool matchups that have been happening. So seeing like Tony Storm working Jordan Grace just this last weekend.
Yeah, you might never see that again.
Yeah. So that's a bit disconcerting. What about the idea that they're not going to, because apparently they've had restrictions in place before, but they weren't really enforced.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what I'm hearing as well from, I can't remember where I heard it, but they may not be as strict on the women. And so a promotion like Pro Wrestling Eve might not, because when I saw this, I was like, Pro Wrestling Eve is probably the one that's copying it the hardest because, the women's scene in the UK is pretty much entirely swept up in this NXT UK thing.
Yeah, so what it looks like is Eve ran a show recently where they introduced a lot of new roster members. So it's looking like they are preparing for the idea that they can't use any of these women. What actually ends up happening, who knows? But right now, this is the situation we're in. So what actually happened was when the first UK tournament happened, this was sort of how the contracts worked, where just everyone can't show up on VOD. Apart from your progresses, it was basically you can't show up on another person's streaming service. It was mostly FlowSlam, but it extended one or two other weird places. Defiant, most notably. You couldn't show up on a Defiant show. So that's how it was. But because NXT UK TV wasn't really a thing, you saw those restrictions lighten up a bit. And so there is a precedent that these restrictions might lighten up a bit come February, March time. But I think the fact that NXT UK TV is a thing now, and it really seems like they're trying to make it a thing, that then they have no reason to reduce these restrictions.
Right.
Now, for me, all of this is absolutely terrifying because
That's the thing I don't understand. Why?
because you're for the wrestlers, obviously, it's a great thing. Look, Pete Dunne's been wrestling for 10 years. He's got a kid. Make that money. There's only a certain number of places you can make any decent money in WWE to support a family. So go do that. Be happy. I'm overjoyed for you. But it's going to cripple the scene when you take away almost half to 2/3 of the actual stars you're removing from that scene. Of course it's going to hurt the scene. And I'm upset that the scene is hurt.
But I mean, okay, you're talking about what? In terms of completely removed, you're talking about 10 to 20 people.
Yeah, let's call it
right?
30, but yeah.
Okay, so 30 odd people. Now, if you built those stars to begin with, right?
Yeah, but the issue is WWE aren't going to let people build for 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, you know? As soon as someone gets
that's speculation. You don't know. I mean, you got to assume, as soon as someone starts to get good, WWE are going to swoop in and sign them up. But
look at what's happening.
At some point, WWE have to stop because they're going to have too many people and nothing to do with any of them.
Look at what's happening in the US now. Look at how many people they have under the current performance center. If they're planning on part of this deal is also they're planning on opening a UK performance center at some point.
Right.
Right? So if you've got a performance center, you're going to have, 100 odd people there? That's basically everyone.
I mean, looking at their plans worldwide, though, as well, there are rumors and, I've heard whispers from people here that there's something coming here. So there's rumors that there's going to be one here. There's rumors that there's one in Japan, and it looks like they're talking to, obviously, we know that they've worked with Noah with the whole thing with Kenta. And there's also been, I've heard whispers of them working with DDT as well, which shocked me, but also didn't. And I don't know how I feel about it. But there's rumors of them going to Germany, UK, Japan, Australia. You got to think that, some of those talent will be spread around, right? Because somewhere like Australia, if it's like an Asia Pacific thing, like there's a lot of talent here, but we will need talent from elsewhere as well to help lift it and what have you. So I don't know if it's going to be, I don't know, like I can understand the fear, I suppose, but I really think that local scenes replenish. Like it's what they do. And wrestling doesn't get worse, you might get periods of time where for a couple of years things dip a little, but overall, the trend is always towards better wrestling. That's like when I look through the history, that's what I see.
I think that's true on a macro scale, on a very, very large scale. Yes, I agree with you. But on a year-to-year basis, no, of course not. That's not what's happening. And the only thing I can really look at to see how we're going to do is how the US indie scene is doing right now. And frankly, it's struggling. It's really, really struggling. There's not many proper US names there anymore. If you look at all of the top stars in Ring of Honor or PWG or wherever, it's a lot of Brits, it's a lot of Japanese wrestlers, it's a lot of luchadors, it's a lot of imports. You're not really seeing people from America itself rising to that top level.
Right. Well, there's a lot going on at the moment as well, leading into January and what have you, with this whole All Elite Wrestling thing, right? So WWE are doing a massive signing spree and what have you to play keep away. And I mean, it's almost like a bubble that it has to burst though. It can't stay at the climate it is for now forever. Like what's going to happen is All Elite Wrestling will launch, I think that's going to damage Impact. It's probably going to damage Ring of Honor. And I mean, this is probably a conversation for another podcast, but I mean, it does tie in though, because part of the reason they're signing up all this time, and All Elite Wrestling are going to be aiming at the UK as well. I mean, Cody's been over there, Cody's been over here, and some of his tweets made us think like he's going to take people from here. But the difference was people here are like, good. we want people to see our guys, to know that, you know, wrestling in Australia is actually pretty damn good. Whereas the UK, a lot of people are already looking at it. So the UK are kind of like, hey, don't take our people. We've got it pretty damn good over here. So it's kind of like a different attitude that I'm noticing between here and the UK.
I think what it is, part of the reason for that is because we've already lived through a dark period where there wasn't really much wrestling. So we know how bad the bads can be. And it's only been a couple of years where we've been good. And so there's a fear of, okay, are we about to go back to that really, really sad period where, like, Rikishi was main eventing shows and, like, you had, I don't know, Paige's dad dressed up as the Road Warrior and he was a top star. We don't want to go back to that kind of really sad period. Right.
Well, no, that's happened here too. Don't think it's... Yeah,
I know Australia very well, so obviously...
No, like there's bad wrestling everywhere. There's still a lot of bad wrestling here. I'm sure there's still a lot of bad wrestling over there too. It's
ICW,
but yeah, I don't know. The reaction is very different. Like I'm noticing a lot of people over here are getting very excited, especially with the whole UK thing as well. There's a lot of talk amongst our guys of like, well, now there's spots opened up in the UK for us.
Yeah. Look, I think you'll get people coming over. There will be more stars being built. Look at someone like A-Kid. A-Kid, a couple months ago, was just a dude and people that are really entrenched in the scene knew. And then this Zack Sabre Jr. match started getting a lot of buzz. And now he's working in the US. He's all over the place now. He's like a big deal star. And will probably be signed by the end of the year. So you'll always have.
So you're looking at it, and you're looking at it, and you're thinking anyone who starts to get a little bit of steam behind them, they're just going to be snapped up by the machine and taken away.
Yeah, because of the people that are already signed to UK contracts, and because of the people in the US that are being signed. This January PC class, the rumors of the types of people that are being signed is just insane. The sort of people that have even the slightest buzz are getting signed up now.
Right, well, they've taken Jonah Rock from us.
They've taken Jonah Rock.
Allegedly.
Jonah Rock only became a worldwide star like at the start of this year, end of last year. And he's already signed. ACH looks like he's going to be signed. Trevor Lee looks like he's going to be signed. These are all people that aren't like...
Which is good, because he's getting ridiculously misused in Impact, I'm just saying.
Yeah, I mean, Trevor Lee at one point was one of the best wrestlers in the world. That's a whole other conversation. But...
I don't know, I can see...
Is my thing. They're not signing stars anymore, they're just signing anyone. And so, of course it's going to hurt the scene if someone has a good match or two, they're probably going to end up being signed.
But I feel like there's just so many guys still there, though. I mean, you got Chris Ridgway, you got David Starr, you got... you don't have Mark Haskins anymore. You don't have Mark Haskins. He just got signed by Ring of Honor.
Yeah, but you don't know if he's going to work a sort of Marty Scurll schedule where he's basically just left, or if he's going to work more like... I don't know, Jimmy Havoc is signed to MLW. He still works here all the time. So you don't know how exactly that's going to work out. I expect
there's another name you've still got. You still got Jimmy Havoc too. Like there's still, you still have a respectable scene. I feel like there's a much ado about nothing here. Like there's a lot of people freaking out. But it really does look to me like the scene is in a healthy place. Like I'm just discovering things like OTT and Riptide and stuff and watching all these guys that I've never watched before. I mean, like, hey, that person's really good. Like I'd seen David Starr on RevPro, I think, but I'd never really been hooked by him. But now I'm like, I really want to seek out some more David Starr matches. You know what I mean? Like I feel like there's still a lot of guys that you have to draw on that will step up to fill those top spots. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, you don't want British wrestling to become British strong style and Wolfgang, and that's it. You know what I mean? Like, and the way it was, I guess, was a lot of the top promotions are just booking the same people. So now you get the opportunity for more people to fill those spots, and it's a good thing.
Yeah, I do agree with you that the spots will probably be filled. I'm a big believer in the idea that the indies will always replenish themselves. There will always be people coming up to replace the people that are gone. My concern is how long will these people be able to fill the spots before they're signed themselves?
Especially with a supposed performance center opening, and then again another one in Germany allegedly.
Yeah,
not too long after.
Yeah. So I remember we were talking for a while about how WXW might be partnering with WWE. At the time, I was very passionately against it and thinking it's not going to happen.
Right, and then old mate left.
So what happened is Christian Michael Jacoby left.
Yes, that's the guy.
CMJ, wonderful man, wonderful man. He left. He left citing burnout, but with everything that's happening now, with WXW partnering with WWE, with CMJ always being one of his big talking points was always, I want to make Germany a really strong wrestling scene. And I want to be able to make WXW a place where people can work full-time and make a full-time living.
Right.
Now with him going, and with one of the things WXW have done is, which at the time seemed weird, but no one really looked into it much, was their streaming service. They've separated into a separate company from WXW proper.
Okay.
So WXW, the company, and WXW Now, the streaming service, are owned by two different companies.
Right.
Now, that might be because, look, they know the tape library is going to go to the network, but they want to be able to protect their company themselves. It seems weird now when you're looking at it. And it seems even weirder when you look at the fact that Christian Michael Jacoby left around that same time. So was there some kind of a big blow-up? We don't know for sure, but all signs are pointing towards that.
Right. So he was the owner, though, right?
He was, yes.
Like the main guy behind it.
He was running the company. I don't know the ownership very, very well, but he was the guy running the company, and he left.
Yeah. Right, but he's not speaking out publicly at all.
No, he went complete radio silence.
Right.
As soon as he left, citing burnout, he went on complete radio silence and hasn't said anything.
Which makes sense if you're burnt out, but also makes sense if there's stuff going on that you can't talk about because of NDAs and all that sort of stuff.
Or also just look, he's worked with the people running WXW Now for years and years and years. Those are his friends. So he probably doesn't want to go out and say, if you and I had a big blow up, I wouldn't go on Twitter and be like, this Greg dude, he's such a shithead for taking this money.
Well, you probably would. You're a bit of a shitheel.
I think I'm more of a tweener, but that's a conversation for another day, Gregory.
Yeah, that's fair. No, I get what you're saying. I do get what you're saying. But it's a weird situation happening in Germany too with all the WXW stuff. And I can't see a reason for why the streaming service would separate, though. Do they contract out other libraries onto their service?
They do, yeah.
Okay.
So again, it's weird what's happening.
Yeah.
But if the video library is being taken by WWE, it might be they will have thought, look, we want to make sure that this doesn't affect our actual wrestling company in any way.
Right.
But this is all speculation from me. I don't know.
Of course. And but as a consumer as well, looking at, $10 for WWE Network, $8 for WXW Now, $10 for Demand Progress, etc., etc. I'm looking at this going, I'm going to save $30, $40.
Sure.
Even if the WWE Network doubles in price, I'm like, please WWE step in, buy everyone, and allow them to continue running as they are. And then I get to save a lot of money and still watch all my wrestling. Like, because we do know that Shane McMahon's initial vision for the WWE Network, which he pitched to his dad and that eventually has become a thing, was to have, all of the wrestling, to basically be the wrestling network online and just have all the wrestling. You go to WWE for that. Which, I mean, how do we know that's not what they're planning to do? Like, they're going to keep letting everywhere in the world operate as they normally do, and they're going to put the best stuff on their network.
Right. Frankly, I think that's a very naive way of looking at things.
It's very optimistic. I'm an optimistic guy.
I respect that. I wish I could be as upbeat as you are. I think you look at WWE historically, and that's all we can do is look at them historically.
Right.
They don't normally let people just run. If companies are involved with them, they don't normally let them just do whatever they want,
Right. Well, and there's good reason for that too, since they're a public company now and what have you. But I get what you're saying when you look at it historically.
From their point of view, of course, if I'm investing in you, I want to have some say in what's going on. Of course. That makes complete sense.
Right.
But that doesn't mean it's good for me as the consumer. I get what you're saying that, look, I'm going to be paying less to get all of this wrestling. But if the wrestling is shit, then who cares? I'll pay...
Yeah, well, that's the thing, is you don't want them turning Progress into, NXT UK. You don't want them turning... I mean, I don't even want NXT UK to be the exact same as NXT. You don't want that WWE bland style. You want the the local regions to maintain their flavor and have a feeder system that works organically more so than anything. But I don't know. It's, to me, I feel like it's a good idea, but it does come down to how it ends up working in practice.
Yeah, I think it's a very, very scary time to be. It's not a scary time. It's a very weird time to be a wrestling fan in general. And WWE, and the British scene looks like it's going to be hurt the most by whatever is going on now between WWE and New Japan and All Elite and all of this, all of the grander things that are happening looks like it's coming down more on Britain than it is most other places.
Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
100 episodes. We made it. We made it to 100 episodes, and what better way to celebrate than by sharing Threadbox with all the B+ players across Australia. Threadbox is a subscription service for men that brings you a personalized shopping and stylist experience for any budget. You get direct email access to a personalized stylist who builds out a style profile for you and sends you all the clothes you need. So if you need singlets this month, you're going to get singlets. If you need belts this month, you're going to get belts. You let them know, and they're going to send that out to you. There are multiple packages available, and you always get more worth than you pay for because Threadbox know all the best brands. CJ and I both got deliveries this month, and amongst our new threads were KSCY, Offends, Cheat Monday, NXP, and more. So you can check out our unboxing videos on the Facebook page, or if you go to threadbox.com.au, you can check out past packages that they've sent out there. We believe in Threadbox because Threadbox want to help us, you, and men everywhere look better without all the bother of having to shop. In as low a price as $40, what more can you ask for? You're going to get more value than you pay for. Just for our fans, if you put in the code the B+15 at checkout, you're going to get 15% off your first box. Head to threadbox.com.au and use the code the B+15 to get your box today. Right. Well, overall, it looks like we've been saying for years that a lot of people anyway have been saying for years, I've been saying for years that we're on the verge of another boom period, right? I've been saying it since all the Daniel Bryan stuff was happening. I'm like, things are getting interesting there. Things are getting interesting on the indies because Bullet Club's happening at the same time, all that sort of stuff. And streaming is becoming a thing. We're on the verge of this boom period. And it looks like that's all sort of coming to a head now with this All Elite Wrestling, with the New Japan expansions, etc. And we're actually like ramping up into what could be a new war, so to say. But WWE are severely, like they have everyone else outgunned massively. And so it's a little unfair, but it does look like overall when these things happen, it is good for the wrestling industry until you get a clear winner, and then you end up with a couple of years of just dead scene until things start to rebuild again from scratch. That's how it looks to me.
Yeah, I think, again, on the macro scale, this is probably good for wrestling in that you've got a couple big companies now trying to make their way and trying to become something. But on the micro scale, for the local scenes, there's going to be damage done.
Right. The question that I have is, how much is this massive signing spree and expansion in UK and all that? How much of that is WWE stockpiling weapons that they don't even necessarily need, just so that they can win the game before it actually starts? That's the part that I'm worried about.
That's probably what it is, because again, look at the PC in America. Look at the amount of talent they have that hasn't even debuted yet. You know, Marcel Barthel, the former Axel Dieter Jr., he's still in the PC doing nothing. Donovan Dijak was signed for like a year. It looks like he's only now getting involved. Io Shirai is signed and working at the PC. I don't think she really works TV yet, does she?
Not really, no. She's been on a couple, but she's not like a featured player as yet.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's a big...
She's doing a whole thing with Dakota Kai, so
she's
Team Kick.
She's on TV, but she's not like featured yet, I suppose.
No, yeah.
And there's a million other people who I'm probably not even thinking of. And
right.
So they've been stockpiling in America for a while now. And it's just they've decided that there's a lot of resources in the UK that they can take advantage of, and they're going to start stockpiling here. Look, they've signed Walter. We haven't even talked about that yet.
Right, yeah, Volta signed. That's something else that's happened since we spoke last.
Yeah.
Something we'd speculated on too, because they'd been trying to, and he was like, I want to stay close to home. And look, the deal for Volta, the deal is fantastic. He gets to do what he's doing and get paid WWE money, essentially. Because he's not coming over. He might come over to work the occasional big NXT show, you know, like TakeOver, WrestleMania weekend or whatever. But yeah, he's basically getting paid WWE money now to do what he was doing already.
Yeah, and again, great for him. He's been around for fucking forever and has been great for fucking forever. I've sworn a lot on this.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's explicit. Who cares? Fuck everything.
That's fine. Yeah, no, but he deserves it, right?
it.
Like, we can agree to that. We can agree that these guys deserve what they're getting. But you're just worried for the scene, which is a fair worry to have. But I'm looking at it far more optimistically. I think it'll replenish itself. Stars are always going to find ways to make themselves, you know?
Who knows? Who knows? I hope that the scene stays strong. And look, RevPro announced Will Ospreay versus Puck for a York Hall show, and that show sold out in like 10 minutes. So there is still some life to the scene. The question is, how long can that really last?
Right, and RevPro, they've insulated themselves. They've prepared for this because Andy Q saw the writing on the wall when he was presented the offer, right? Because there was like, wait, you can buy me out at any time for a 6-figure sum. No thanks, I like what I'm doing. And so he didn't take the offer when Progress and everyone else did. And so he's sort of insulated himself and sort of prepared for this, right? So RevPro are going to step up as the big non-WWE player in the UK, which, I mean, they already are, but even more so. And they're positioning themselves with New Japan, which is interesting, because if there is some kind of war heating up, then that's very interesting to see.
Yeah, so and RevPro haven't been allowed to use WWE UK people for quite a while now. I want to say 6 to 8 months. And in that 6 to 8 months, they've very, very heavily pushed New Japan talent. Suzuki and Zack were their tag champions basically the entire year. Ishii is their world champion now. Suzuki was it before. It's very much a New Japan B show on some respects.
Yeah.
I think that's an issue as well, because you're not helping. I understand why they've done it, because if you lose the NXT UK people, there's only so many other people you can use. And if you want to be selling out 1,200, 2,000 seater buildings, you need big, big stars. So I get what they're doing from that point of view. But again, I think RevPro might be the perfect case study of what BritWres will be come January, where you've got some guys that are really, really good, like your Chris Ridgway, your David Starr, your, I don't know, Aussie Open, Zach and Will. I assume Pac will be around quite a bit.
Seems like, yeah.
Yeah, because Pac, Andy was one of the people that was booking Pac regularly when he was here the first time.
Yeah. You guys still have Mike Bailey as well.
Yeah. So
there's a few names.
There are people, but when you look at what RevPro are doing, the top of the card is almost entirely New Japan guys. So will it be come January the top of most BritWres cards is just imports?
Right. Well, what I find interesting is I think that might be the case to an extent, but I don't necessarily think to a detriment, right? Because, I mean, our biggest company here, World Series Wrestling, it works really well with bringing the imports over and then putting the Aussie guys in the ring with them and sort of lifting the locals up to that level, to a point now where Robbie Eagles was able to pin Austin Aries 1, 2, 3 in the middle of the ring and get the championship, and your casual fan who were at the show bought into it completely, because when they were at the show 2 months prior, they saw him get a roll-up win in a tag match and was like, oh, this guy might have a chance. He's probably going to get a title shot now. Do you get what I mean? Like, so, like, if it's done well, it can work to the benefit of everyone involved.
Yeah, and again, in these sort of dark periods of BritWres, that's kind of what it was. You had the FWA, which was using almost entirely imports at the top of the cards, with a couple BritWres guys thrown in. I think the issue with that is it's not really sustainable. Because yes, you'll pop a house when you bring over, I don't know, Minoru Suzuki. When you bring him over for the first time, you'll pop a house. When you bring him over for the fifth or sixth time, it's not as special. This Pac...
Well, if you're telling good stories with him, it is.
It is, and that is, I guess, what it comes down to. I think that's a fair point, actually. It depends on how you use these guys. And
yeah, because that's the thing so World Series Wrestling is the perfect case example here in Australia, because, you know, they've got a couple of guys that have been on every tour since they relaunched last year. So they've been running again for a year, and they've done 4 tours, right? And every tour that they've had Austin Aries. Every tour that they've had Brian Cage. And these guys have told some really good stories with our talent over time that have enabled them to keep coming back and have it keep making sense, and have people really wanted to see Austin Aries lose that belt, and not in a please lose the belt and go away kind of way, but in a he's really good at what he's doing. People hate him and want to see him lose. Like, he is an effective heel in this country. And so I think that it as long as you're telling good stories, as long as it's booked in a way that works, I guess, it can be a good thing. The problem is a lot of people won't book it in a way that works, you know.
Yeah, I think it's a very, very scary time. One.
You know what I see happening as well, and this is me crazy conspiratory, like, just out there, just having a look at everything that's happening, and I'm seeing things line up where it does look like we're heading into a 3-way war, right? With this All Elite, with New Japan, with WWE, right? And RevPro have aligned with New Japan. All Elite could be like, because I think Cody's over there with Fight Forever, and I think there's another one, what's it called? A new one that's popping up?
WrestleGate Pro.
WrestleGate Pro. Am I seeing Elite talent on that as well? Or is that more Japan stuff? Because I'm only going off things I've seen online.
It is more Japan stuff.
Okay.
What I will say is, and this is not to discredit Gary Ward, I think the promoter's name is. I wouldn't hold my breath at WrestleGate Pro or Fight Forever or even Breed is another one that's popping up. I wouldn't hold my breath of those guys being big players. Let's put it that way.
Right, but if say there is this war heating up, right, and this All Elite Wrestling with their millionaire backers are looking for partners in other countries, that could be a boon for them as well, because bringing the Elite over constantly for shows and things, it could potentially be a good thing.
Yeah.
To have this three-way war that's actually playing out on a global stage.
Yes, but there's going to be casualties, of course. And
well, yeah, any war will have casualties.
Yeah, and so I think the fear is we're going to be the casualties. BritWres is going to be the casualty. And so, yeah, for the short term, it might look like, look at us, we're on this big stage, blah, 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 go Britain. But for after 5 years or so, what are we going to have left? I think at this point, I think we're going around in circles, making a lot of the same points.
Yeah. Well, you know what the worst part is too? It's never the crap stuff that's the casualty.
Of course
right?
not.
It's never so like when the big wrestling boom in the 90s happened, that's when you had like your really bad wrestlers. I don't know if it's the same over there, but here it's where you had your really bad wrestlers with face paint coming out, and like the wrestling that I got taken to as a kid because you like this stuff you like that Monday Nitro stuff. Let's take you out to Rudy Hill RSL and watch some wrestling. And it was bad. It was very bad, but they were making money. Like there were hundreds of people there. Like I've been to wrestling shows now locally that have been absolutely amazing, that have a third of the audience that I sat there and watched some guy in an executioner's mask at Rudy Hill. Like it's never the bad stuff that suffers, unfortunately.
Yeah, because who cares about the bad stuff? The bad stuff no one even really looks at. It's just allowed to go on.
Yeah, which is a travesty. But no, I do. I think you're right. I think we have gone around in circles a lot. But I'm still looking at it optimistically. I'm still looking at it like I don't think this is the death of BritWres. I'm on the side of, was it Pete Dunne that sent out that massive tweet where he went on? Because that's the other thing too. We haven't gotten into all the social media stuff because social media exploded over all this stuff.
Yeah, don't even get me started on some of the social media stuff. As just a very
no, hang on, no, let's go. Justin Sizem, can we talk about that, please?
Okay, look.
Because he did like the weirdest flex ever.
Look, I've stood up to talk about Justin Sizem, okay? Out of respect for Justin Sizem. He did a dumb thing by positioning himself as like the savior of BritWres and the...
I'm never going to work WWE. Yeah, we know.
Or like seeing himself as a Superman pose and all of this in the background of... Yeah. That was dumb. But this is a man that is independently wealthy, right? He used to play Hawkeye on... Marvel had this live action tour. So he played Hawkeye for a couple of years. So he doesn't need money.
Right, so he's like a former stunt guy or something.
Yeah, something like that. So he has money. And he was saying what a lot of fans were thinking. He said it in a very, very cringy way.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is I thought it was hilarious because I was watching all these BritWres fans on Twitter and stuff be like, this is the end, this is the worst. And then he comes out and he's like, I will fight for you. And everyone was like, oh God, you're even worse. Like everyone like ripped into this guy. And I'm like, he's coming from a good place. He's reading the room and reacting somewhat appropriately, and everyone just shat on him and just shot him down. And it just, for me, it was one of the most hilarious things to watch in the last month.
Yeah, so what pissed me off wasn't so much Justin Seisen, it was the fact that within minutes, all three of British Strong Style sent these really dumb responses to him going, hang your head in shame, Justin. Look at all we've done for BritWres. No, fuck you guys. I've got so upset about this. Fuck you guys. You're leaving the scene and you might potentially, look, go make your money, but you're probably doing a lot of damage to the scene while you're leaving. This is a man.
But they put British wrestling on the map.
Yeah, British wrestling didn't exist until Pete Dunne won the WWE UK title, for fuck's sake.
I just love the amount of people that are putting things on maps. I think it's great. I saw it was Zach Gibson said something about putting British wrestling on the map too. I think I saw it on Twitter today. No, yeah, it's officially on the map though. I think that's the important thing.
British wrestling started on the UK tournament and hasn't been. The thing is, I'm sorry, I'm so upset now. The thing is, Pete Dunne was kind of a nobody until the UK tournament.
Right. Well, no, but that's the thing, right? Is I watched that UK tournament. I woke up at 3 a.m. and watched both nights of that tournament, and he was a star immediately. He made himself a star from when he attacked when he wasn't supposed to, when they were all lined up and stuff, and he did that attack and everything. And he was a star, and I fell in love with Pete Dunne, right? And I watched those matches, and I was like, wow, UK wrestling looks really good. So to be fair to him, he's talking about people like me. He's talking about people in, buttfuck nowhere, USA, that go to Ring of Honor once in a while, go to their local, and also watch WWE and have the network. He's talking about those people, and none of us knew anything about British wrestling. Like I'm a fairly hardcore wrestling fan. I have a podcast, but I wasn't. Like it's not the most accessible thing in the world. Well, it wasn't the most accessible thing in the world. And the NXT UK or WWE UK as it was then or whatever, it did bring a lot of eyes. It did. To be fair to those guys in their responses.
Yeah.
It brought more eyes than World of Sport.
Yeah, I mean it did. I got a little bit heated there. I will accept. But it did, of course it did. But I think you have to be careful not to discredit the people that came before you. And
no, of course not. Of course, and I don't think they would.
I don't think they would. But from
I don't think that was their intention.
But from those responses, that's the kind of idea that I got. That they believe we are BritWres, we created BritWres, and we can do whatever the fuck we want.
Right. Well, and that's the thing, though. The thing that's really cool about the WWE system as it is in 2018 or 2019 and moving forward, the really cool thing about the WWE system, though, is it gives people a place to make this a full-time job, even beyond, like, you got to think with a performance center opening up, you got guys like Jody Flash and whatnot that will now, they'll get picked up as trainers, right?
Yeah.
And they'll be able to do this, and as agents and as creative people for the UK brand, and they're going to be able to do that at least well into their 60s on a full-time salary. You know what I mean? Like this is an incredible thing for a lot of people.
Yeah, again, I think the one point I really, really want to hammer home is I'm all for the boys making money. They all deserve to make money.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean I'm happy about it. I'm begrudgingly...
I just think people look at WWE as this big evil machine that's stomping around, ruining things. But you got to understand how many hundreds of lives the kids that are going to eat well forever. Like it's just I can't see them as some big evil monstrosity, which I think BritWres Twitter wants me to, and I can't.
Yeah, we're just afraid of what's going to happen. It's times of uncertainty.
Yeah, I guess if you're under the foot as it's coming down, it might be a bit scary.
One thing we didn't touch on, which I want to just do very, very briefly, is this has been known for a while in like DM circles and everything. I think this is the first time it's really come out publicly. that WWE have the option to buy Progress and ICW whenever they feel like.
Right. Well, I heard this months ago on the Andy, the A Squared podcast.
Yeah. So it's been out. It was out there even before that. I feel like I had heard it for the first time around the first UK tournament that this was the agreement.
Right.
But again, I assume this is the first time it's really been talked about publicly. And that is also terrifying, because now you're not even taking away wrestlers, you're taking away major promotions. Whatever I say about ICW, they still draw decent numbers. And Progress is obviously like the biggest company in this country. So if you're buying them up, taking them away, it's no secret Jim Smallman is booking NXT UK. I'm not saying anything that's not known. So of course he's going to leave. Progress is going to be bought up. There's an even bigger hole that's going to be left after that.
Right, but those holes can be filled. That's the thing, is you'll get a new group of boys that'll step up, that'll do what needs to be done, and it'll replenish. And I guess, we're going in circles. I'm very optimistic. I think it'll replenish. You are cautious and worried, and I think that's fair. I think it's completely fair, and I think that it's a good place to leave it.
Yeah. It's been fun.
Yeah. The buying up thing is odd. When I first heard that, I was like, wow. As a person running a company, I would never ever enter into that agreement. I would 100% agree with Andy Q's course of action. Do not sign this piece of paper and do everything you can to protect yourself from it, because that is concerning. I'm not one, I've always thought the whole "you're a sellout" thing. It's like when people call Pete Dunne a sellout, or when people called Blink-182 sellouts. I'm like, you're an idiot. Who does not you tell me one person in this world who does not want to make as much money as they possibly can so they can live a happy, healthy life with their family. It's the whole "you're a sellout." It's the most ridiculous notion. But being presented, as an entrepreneur, being presented with that piece of paper, I wouldn't be able to sign it, even though I like money. It's sort of a weird thing.
I think...
But yeah, I 100%. I'll say this: out of all of it, it makes me want to support RevPro more.
Yeah, I think there's two different schools of thought with this. On the one hand, you've got the idea that a lot of people start companies with the idea that we're going to sell this company to someone bigger. We're going to make as much money out of this company as we can, and then we're going to sell it off. That is a completely normal thing to do in business. There is also an idea in business that, no, we're going to grow our company so that we ourselves can be buying up these smaller companies. Those are two just very different ideas of how business works. So I get...
Yeah, MySpace versus Facebook.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I get where both of them are coming from. I think it's a mistake to be offering up your company to be sold. But again, Jim Smallman has a podcast talking about how much he likes WWE. He's probably just happy to be getting checks with the WWE watermark on them,
Right. Yeah.
So,
which is completely fair too. I can see that side of it.
If WWE came to me tomorrow and was like, "Aqeel, here's some money. You're going to be a WWE employee," I would run in a heartbeat. Of course I would.
Right.
So I get why they're doing that, but again...
And all of a sudden, this podcast would take on a very different tone.
It would take on a very different tone. I would be sitting here telling you how British Strong Style versus Gallus is maybe the greatest feud in the history of wrestling, and how, Johnny Saint is one of the greatest general managers ever.
Right. Well, he has that assistant guy
Sid Scala, who is great and might also be potentially problematic, but that's a conversation for another day.
Well, look, see, we haven't talked about the actual NXT UK stuff or how much it's a good show. It's like you said, it hasn't
really
hit
bland.
the stride necessarily, but it's I'm enjoying it. I'm liking Dave Mastiff. and he's just destroying people. Like I said, I've fallen in love with the White Witch of NXT UK, Isla Dawn, even though she's sort of challenging my girl Rhea Ripley. And my kid this morning was watching Ginny versus. So my daughter is 3 years old. I've talked about her on the podcast before, and I was watching NXT UK this morning, and it was Ginny versus Xia Brookside, right? And she normally automatically likes people with colored hair, right? But after watching Candy Floss get squashed by Rhea Ripley, she was going for Ginny because she's like, no, Ginny is strong like Rhea Ripley. Rhea Ripley's the strongest, and I want to support them because they're going to win. And I was like, dude, she gets it already. Like, this is amazing. Like, I'm having a good time with NXT UK. So I don't know. It's yeah. We didn't even get to talk about that, but hopefully next month we will.
Yeah, I think next month will be better to talk about it, just because around that time Takeover will have happened or will just be about to happen, and we'll have a better.
Yeah, I think we should commit now to doing like a pre-show to the Takeover and actually talking NXT UK.
I'm down. We'll say this on the record. There will be an NXT UK Takeover Blackpool. What a mouthful that is to say, by the way.
It is.
There will be a pre-show for that, where we will talk about how Dave Mastiff and Eddie Dennis in a no DQ match is going to be so much fun. Lord help me.
All right. It's going to be great. It's a date. And with that, where can people find you, Aqeel?
So you can follow me on Twitter at Aqeel Khalid, AQEELKHALID. Immediately after this, I'm about to record a year-end show with Arnold Furious for ReviewReviews.com.
Right. Breakout Promotion of the Year, PWA.
Of course. Wrestler of the Year, Jonah Rock. I don't know any Australians, I'm sorry.
No, I'm given if we. I don't think we're doing a year-end thing this year, but it would have been Will Ospreay for me.
Yeah, potentially.
Wrestler of the Year. I know you have your whatever about Will Ospreay, but for me, with the things he's done with our Australian scene here and just the matches I get to watch him have in New Japan and where else he wrestles, he puts on quality matches, and that's what I care about. And he does great things for our scene here.
He's quite high up on my list, to be fair.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Eat a dick. Yeah. But no, so people can find you on the Review Reviews
podcast and Twitter, and Twitter is the best place for any dumb projects I might start.
Right. And I am at GregUnchained on Twitter, at the GregUnchained on Instagram. We collectively are the B Plus Wrestle on Twitter because wrestling wouldn't fit the B Plus Wrestling everywhere else. Like, share, subscribe, 5-star review. Enjoy your holidays, people. I am. It's great. And thank you so much for listening.
Hold one. Arm drag.
You're not good at this. Get out. Let me tell you a personal story about Vince McMahon.
You just made the list.
So, no speak English.
Dummy.
Goodbye and good night.
Hold two. Arm bar.
This is the worst town I've ever been in.
It's still real to me, damn it!
Dummy.